First contact and false assumptions. The hum of the Alliance Council chamber was palpable, a quiet but steady pulse that filled the room. It wasn't the kind of hum that filled you with confidence, but rather with an unsettling sense of being out of place. Ambassador Sarah Chen stood at the center of it all, her posture immaculate, a beacon of human poise amidst the vast, alien architecture that surrounded her. Crystalline spires stretched towards the high ceiling, a design meant to awe and intimidate, but to Sarah, it was nothing more than a decorative backdrop. Having grown up in the deep underwater cities of New Shanghai, no amount of alien grandeur could unsettle her. She had seen the very depths of Earth's oceans, places where the light didn't reach, and creatures that would make even the bravest of minds pause. The Alliance's idea of intimidation was child's play in comparison. Before her stood the High Counselor, Vex Thor, an imposing figure with translucent tentacles rippling with barely concealed disdain. His species was one of many in the Galactic Alliance, an association that consisted of beings from planets all over the galaxy. Most of these species were technologically advanced, yes, but in the grand scheme of things, they were still figuring out how to harness the raw power of the universe. This was their mistake. They had underestimated humanity from the beginning. Vex Thor cleared his throat, the sound unnerving in the quiet chamber. Humanity's application for full membership in the Galactic Alliance, he began, his voice dripping with condescension, must be denied at this time. Your species simply hasn't demonstrated the necessary sophistication. The eyes of the gathered delegates flicked toward Sarah, some with curiosity, others with barely hidden amusement. They were waiting for her to react, expecting some form of defiance, perhaps a rash outburst that would confirm their preconceived notions about humans. The assumptions were the same across the board. Humanity was a young, wild species born from a death world. They fought, they conquered, but they lacked the patience or wisdom to truly be a part of the greater galactic community. Sarah's lips curled into a smile that was nothing more than a mask for the fire burning behind her eyes. "We understand, High Counselor," she said, her voice steady and calm, her words calculated. "Earth will, of course, continue to operate under provisional membership status. We only wish to be productive members of the galactic community." The council members relaxed slightly, as though her acceptance of their guidance was exactly what they had expected. Humanity, after all, had only recently made contact with the Alliance. They couldn't have known how to play the game yet, could they? The notion that humans were primitive and naive was comfortable, a narrative they could understand. What they didn't realize was that they were already deep in humanity's game. And they had no idea. Sarah's smile never quite reached her eyes. But that didn't matter. She had learned long ago that the best way to deceive an enemy wasn't to lie, but to let them believe in their own superiority. Vex Thor, apparently satisfied with the exchange, continued. "We are willing to offer you guidance and oversight, of course. There are many lessons that must be learned before your species can take its rightful place among us." Sarah nodded, as though absorbing every word. "Of course, we'll be happy to follow any protocols you deem necessary." The words were smooth, diplomatic, and yet underneath them was something sharp and deliberate. She knew what was coming. It was only a matter of time before the Alliance would start restricting humanity's growth, trying to steer them in directions they saw fit. Back on her ship, Sarah quickly moved to her private quarters. As soon as the door slid shut behind her, she pulled up her communication device. Phase 1 complete, she reported to Earth Command, her voice unwavering. "They rejected our application exactly as predicted. They'll try to control our expansion soon." Fleet Admiral Jackson's hologram appeared before her, his face stern. "How long before they try to regulate our development?" 6 months. A year. 6 months at most, Sarah replied, her fingers tapping the interface with practiced precision. "They'll start by restricting our expansion into the Orion Arm, and then move on to technology exports." "Perfect. That gives us time," Jackson said with a grim nod. "Keep playing the peaceful primitive ambassador. Let's hope they never give us reason to show them otherwise. Sarah's mind raced, already forming plans far beyond what the Alliance could comprehend. The Alliance thought of Earth as a backwater planet, still in the throes of its infancy, struggling to keep up with the more advanced civilizations around it. What they didn't know was that Earth was already leagues ahead. Humanity had perfected technologies the Alliance couldn't even begin to imagine. Technologies that could unravel the very fabric of reality itself. But no, Sarah's orders were clear. Let them think we're primitive. Let them underestimate us. This was the strategy of human history. Appear weak when you are strong. When they finally pushed too far, when they thought they had humanity cornered, that's when the Alliance would learn why Earth was classified as a death world in the first place. As Sarah sat back in her chair, she allowed herself a brief moment to think about how far humanity had come. Just a few short years ago, they had been nothing more than a single species on a single planet, struggling to navigate the complexities of space. Now they were quietly building fleets capable of slipping through the folds of space itself, weaponry that could rewrite reality, and covert operations deep within the Alliance's own borders. Back on Earth, Dr. Marcus Rivera stood in his underground lab, the cold steel walls of the facility surrounding him as quantum probabilities danced across his holoscreens. This place, 30 kilometers beneath the Pacific Ocean, was humanity's secret heart. For most of the Alliance species, it would have been a death trap, crushing pressures, freezing temperatures, and an environment that could freeze most organic life on contact. For humanity, it was Tuesday. Run the simulation again, Rivera instructed, his eyes narrowing as he studied the data. The Phantom Drive was working. They could now cloak entire fleets from Alliance sensors, slipping through space like shadows. His communicator chimed, and he glanced at the message. It was from Sarah. Her words were simple, but the weight behind them was clear. The Alliance is about to get a lot bolder. We need to be ready. And they were. In secret, humanity was preparing for something the galaxy had never seen before, something no one would see coming. A fleet that could slip in and out of reality. Technology so advanced that even the most advanced Alliance species wouldn't understand what hit them. The Alliance thought humanity was weak, primitive. They thought they could control humanity's destiny. But as Sarah Chen smiled at her report, she knew one thing. When the time came, Earth would show the galaxy exactly why Deathworlders were not to be trifled with. Humanity was done playing nice, and that, as the Alliance would soon learn, was their first mistake. The tipping point. The stillness of space was always deceptive. Beneath its calm, the universe was a pressure cooker, and every so often, something would push the lid just a little too far. For the Alliance, humanity's actions were a slow, creeping threat they didn't even realize they were up against. And in the shadows of Earth's solar system, a vast network of preparations was already underway. Months passed after the Alliance rejected humanity's bid for full membership, but the arrogance of the decision was not easily forgotten. Earth had obeyed every restriction, every rule laid out by the Council. New colonies, restricted. Technology exports, limited. They were quiet, compliant, on the surface. Back on Earth, in a hidden facility buried deep beneath the Pacific Ocean, Dr. Marcus Rivera was studying his progress with meticulous precision. Every move had to be calculated, every aspect of their work moving like clockwork in a long game that few in the Alliance could even comprehend. The Phantom Drive, a technology so advanced that it allowed ships to slip between dimensions, had already surpassed expectations. It was the ultimate cloak. Entire fleets could now disappear from even the most advanced sensors. Run the test again, Rivera muttered to his assistant, eyes glued to the shimmering, complex quantum data in front of him. The possibilities were endless, but they weren't there yet. The technology needed refinement, some fine-tuning. They couldn't afford to make a single mistake. One error, and the Alliance would notice. Meanwhile, Sarah Chen sat quietly in her quarters aboard the human delegation ship, reviewing the latest transmissions. The Alliance had begun sending more patrols to monitor humanity's space, a clear sign that their suspicions were beginning to rise. She knew they were testing humanity's limits, probing to see how much they could control. Every move they made seemed like another small victory. Every request for compliance, another layer to their carefully constructed shell. They were pushing just hard enough to make it seem like they were still in control, but they were starting to make mistakes. Her communicator buzzed, a flash of light that snapped her out of her thoughts. It was Admiral Jackson. "Chen," he began without preamble, his voice steady but with an undercurrent of urgency. "We've been monitoring their patrol patterns. They're getting bolder." Sarah straightened. "What do you mean?" "They're more aggressive. New scans are being conducted, and they're not just watching us. They're actively searching for something. They've begun at the same time, high above the Earth's atmosphere." Sarah stood in the observation deck of her ship, her hands clasped behind her back, watching the stars stretch out before her. The stars that had once seemed so far away, so impossible to reach. Now, they were within humanity's grasp. The Alliance still didn't understand the true nature of humanity. They thought they had the upper hand, that they had the power to control Earth's future. But what the Alliance didn't know was that humanity's greatest strength wasn't brute force, nor was it technology. It was something far more dangerous: patience, the ability to endure and to wait. And when the time came, when the Alliance pushed just a little too far, humanity would strike. Not with violence, but with precision. With the kind of power that could only come from understanding your enemy so completely that you knew exactly when to unleash your might. The next phase had begun. The quantum mirage was ready. The Alliance thought they were in control. They thought they knew everything. But they didn't know humanity. And they certainly didn't understand what was lurking just beneath the surface, waiting for the perfect moment to rise. Sarah's smile was thin and sharp, a dangerous thing to behold. She wasn't just playing their game anymore. She was rewriting the rules. The tipping point was near. And when the Alliance came knocking, humanity would be waiting, ready to show them exactly what it meant to be a species born from a death world. The calm before the storm. The universe was a vast, unyielding expanse, stretching out across infinite stars. But for humanity, it was no longer a place of fear. It was their domain to shape, their canvas to paint upon. And they weren't about to let anyone take that from them. Not the Alliance, not anyone. Sarah Chen stood before the mirror in her private quarters, her reflection staring back at her, calm and composed. But beneath that composed exterior, her mind was racing. Every day, every hour, the countdown to confrontation grew shorter. The Alliance had made a crucial mistake. They had underestimated humanity's ingenuity. They thought Earth was just another primitive world, another backwater speck in the galaxy. They were wrong. Sarah had spent the past months in constant communication with Earth Command, overseeing the final stages of humanity's preparations. What the Alliance failed to realize was that the restrictions they placed on humanity were not limitations. They were the fuel for a slow-burning fire. They had tried to box humanity in, but the truth was that Earth's greatest strength had always been the ability to turn adversity into opportunity. Outside her window, the stars twinkled peacefully, unaware of the storm that was brewing in the dark corners of space. There were no signs, no warnings. The galaxy had no idea what was coming. The quantum grid, beneath the surface of Earth, in the heart of a top-secret facility buried miles beneath the Pacific Ocean, Dr. Marcus Rivera and his team were preparing for the final phase. The quantum grid, their greatest weapon, was nearly complete. It wasn't just a weapon. It was a masterpiece of science and engineering, a network that would give humanity control over the very fabric of space and time. Marcus reviewed the data on his holoscreen, his fingers flying across the interface with practiced precision. Each component of the grid was designed to seem like something mundane to the Alliance: an innocuous satellite relay, a weather station, a mining platform. But when activated, the quantum grid would alter the laws of physics themselves, creating a shield around Earth that could nullify any enemy weapon, any enemy fleet, and even alter the flow of time within its radius. The beauty of it was that the Alliance would never see it coming. They believed humanity to be primitive, unsophisticated, and incapable of developing such advanced technology. But in the quiet darkness of their labs, in the hidden corners of the galaxy, humanity had already built a force capable of toppling empires. Marcus felt the weight of it. The last pieces of the puzzle were falling into place. But the Alliance was still pushing, still making their moves. The patrols had increased in frequency, their ships constantly sweeping through human-controlled space. They were looking for something. Anything that could give them the justification they needed to invade Earth and protect the galaxy from what they saw as a dangerous, unpredictable species. But Marcus was ready. He knew that the Alliance's arrogance would be their downfall. The quantum grid was their trump card, and it was almost time to play it. Sarah's move. Back on the human delegation ship, Sarah received an encrypted message from Admiral Jackson. His hologram flickered to life before her, his face grim. "Chen, they're escalating," Jackson reported. "The Council is considering deploying a fleet into our space, ostensibly to secure peaceful relations. They're already trying to set up permanent monitoring posts in the Orion Arm." Sarah's expression hardened. The Alliance was no longer playing a passive game. They were preparing to make their move, and humanity's patience was running out. "Have they found anything?" Sarah asked, her voice steady, but with an edge of concern. "No," Jackson replied, "but they're getting closer. Their patrols have been more aggressive, and they're actively searching for any hint of our advanced tech. They don't know it yet, but they're walking straight into a trap." Sarah leaned back in her chair, her eyes narrowing as she thought through the situation. This was the moment they had been waiting for. The Alliance had overplayed its hand, pushing too far, too fast. They thought they were in control, but humanity had been preparing for this moment for years. "Deploy the Mirage," Sarah ordered. "Let them think they're winning. Let them think they have the upper hand. But get ready. When they make their first move, we strike." The gathering clouds. Across the galaxy, the Alliance's ships cruised through the silent void of space, unaware that their every move was being watched. Human observation posts, hidden in the asteroid belts, tracked their every transmission. The quantum drives were ready. The Mirage was set to activate. But still, Sarah couldn't shake the feeling that the Alliance was pushing towards something more. The tension was palpable. The Alliance's moves were no longer subtle. They were in humanity's space now, and they were not just observing. They were preparing to strike. And Sarah knew that the moment the Alliance took action, everything would change. The first spark. Back at the Hope's Promise Research Station, orbiting Europa, Dr. Elena Santos was overseeing a major experiment when the alarm suddenly blared. Her heart skipped a beat as the warning lights flooded the control room. Unauthorized energy signatures detected. A voice crackled through the intercom. "Prepare for immediate inspection. Stand by for Alliance vessel arrival." Elena's blood ran cold. They had been prepared for a surprise inspection, but this was different. The Alliance's scanners were picking up something they shouldn't be able to detect. Their new scanning technology was more advanced than anything humanity had faced before. "Elena, activate the quantum mirage protocols now," a voice called from the back of the room. Elena didn't hesitate. The mirage had to work, or they would be exposed. She punched in the activation codes, her fingers moving quickly but with a sense of finality. Within moments, the station's energy signatures shifted, masking all traces of the station's true purpose. But as she watched the Alliance vessel draw closer, her worry deepened. They were going to find something. Even the quantum mirage couldn't hide everything. And if they did, if the Alliance discovered what humanity had been building, it would be the spark that ignited the war. The calm before the storm was over. The Alliance was finally making their move. And when the storm broke, humanity would be ready. The first shot had been fired. The question was, who would strike the next blow. The moment of reckoning. The universe has a way of revealing its secrets to those who are patient, and humanity, despite the Alliance's assumptions, had been patient. They had bided their time, playing the role of the humble, obedient species. But now, the clock was ticking down, and the waiting game was over. The time for patience was gone. Sarah Chen stood in the command center of Earth's flagship vessel, the Ascendant, as the holographic map of the galaxy flickered before her. The Alliance had crossed a line. They had ventured too deep into human space, and their intentions were now clear. They didn't just want to control humanity. They wanted to dismantle it. And that was something that Earth would never allow. Status report. Sarah barked, her voice cool but cutting through the tension that hung thick in the air. The operations officer, Lieutenant Marquez, looked up from his console. Ambassador, the Endeavor has reported that the Alliance has begun moving their fleet into position along the edge of the Orion Arm. They're preparing to set up permanent checkpoints. Sarah's eyes narrowed. It was exactly what she had feared. The Alliance wasn't just observing anymore. They were preparing for something bigger, and that meant the trap was about to spring. Understood. Prepare to activate the quantum grid, Sarah said, her tone flat, and get Dr. Rivera on the line. The quantum grid unleashed. Beneath the Pacific Ocean, in the depths of Earth's most secure facility, Dr. Marcus Rivera stood in front of a massive holographic display. His team had been working around the clock for months, finalizing the quantum grid. Today was the day. The grid was unlike anything the Alliance had ever seen. It wasn't just a weapon or a shield. It was the pinnacle of human ingenuity. It could bend the very laws of physics, giving humanity control over space and time itself. And once it was activated, it would be the turning point in the galaxy's balance of power. Rivera's hands shook with anticipation, but he knew this moment had been a long time coming. The quantum grid had always been part of the plan, the ultimate safeguard in case the Alliance's arrogance reached a breaking point, and that point had arrived. With a deep breath, Rivera activated the system. A soft hum filled the air as the grid's first layer powered up. The entire Earth-based network was now live. The quantum entanglement fields that had been painstakingly assembled over the past months came online, shimmering with potential. Rivera watched the data stream across his screen. It was working. The grid was stabilizing, and the first subtle ripples in spacetime began to form. The subtlety was key. For the moment, the Alliance would see nothing. Their scanners would detect only what they expected to see: a few random signals, some minor interference, and nothing of real consequence. Humanity had built this system to hide in plain sight. No one would know what they were capable of until it was too late. The Alliance's response. Back in the heart of Alliance space, High Counselor Vex Thor stood before the council chamber, his translucent tentacles rippling with barely concealed anger. For weeks, they had watched the humans grow bolder, and their patience was wearing thin. The preliminary scans of human-controlled space had only raised more questions than answers. The humans were hiding something powerful, and the Alliance was determined to find out what it was. "We cannot allow them to continue their expansion," Vex Thor said, his voice a smooth, calculated threat. "They have broken every protocol and law. We must act now." The other delegates nodded in agreement. The human application for full membership had been denied, but that didn't stop them from spreading their influence across the galaxy. The Alliance had tried to restrict their growth, limit their technology, but every time, humanity had found a way to sidestep those rules. And now, the time had come to put a stop to it. "We will establish a permanent military presence," Vex Thor continued, turning to the assembled council. "We will place monitoring stations across human territory, starting with Proxima Centauri. We cannot afford to allow them to continue on this path." The clash of intentions. Back aboard the Ascendant, Sarah watched the Alliance fleet move into position on her screen. The tension was thick in the air, like the calm before the storm. The Alliance's actions were becoming more brazen, more overt. They were not content to merely observe anymore. The time for diplomatic negotiations had passed. They were preparing for war. "Do we have confirmation from Rivera?" Sarah asked, her gaze unwavering. Lieutenant Marquez nodded. "The quantum grid is active. All systems are running at full capacity. It's ready, Ambassador." Sarah allowed herself a moment to breathe. The Alliance was moving into human space with a heavy hand, and now it was time for humanity to make their move. The orders had already been given. The moment the Alliance made their first move, humanity would respond. The Ascendant's fleet was positioned in a hidden formation, ready to jump to any point in the Orion Arm. They wouldn't strike first, but they were ready for when the inevitable escalation began. The first shot fired. It was a day like any other when the Alliance finally made their move. Without warning, their ships moved toward Earth's solar system. The Alliance didn't just want peace, they wanted control. They believed humanity's capacity for resistance had limits. They were wrong. As the first Alliance ship broke through the boundary of Earth's protected space, a ripple passed through the fabric of reality itself. The quantum grid, now fully active, initiated a subtle shift in the space around the invading fleet. At first, nothing seemed to change. The Alliance ships continued on their trajectory, unaware of the shift that was happening in their wake. Then the first ripple of reality warping energy passed across their sensors. Their communications began to falter. Their weapons systems flickered. They were experiencing interference, but it wasn't a technical malfunction. The subtle reality-altering effects of the quantum grid were beginning to take hold. It wasn't just a defense, it was an offense waiting to be unleashed. As the Alliance fleet approached Earth's outer orbit, they were already operating on borrowed time. The human response. On Earth, Sarah watched the signals unfold. The Alliance was moving forward, undeterred. But soon, they would find themselves in the middle of a trap they had no hope of understanding. "Begin the countermeasures," Sarah ordered coldly. "Activate the Phantom Drive. Initiate quantum mirage projections. Let them think they're still in control." Her team worked swiftly, running simulations, adjusting coordinates, and activating every weapon and countermeasure humanity had at its disposal. The battle for humanity's future had begun, and it was no longer about showing restraint or playing nice. It was about proving that humanity was no longer the prey, but the predator. As the Alliance ships neared the critical point, humanity was ready to unleash the most powerful weapon they had: patience, ingenuity, and the ability to make their enemies see what they wanted them to see. Until it was too late. The war for Earth had begun. But what the Alliance didn't know was that they had already lost. The storm was upon them. The Phantom Strike. The air in the command center was thick with anticipation. Sarah Chen's eyes flicked across the holographic display, watching the blinking coordinates of the Alliance fleet as they slowly closed in on Earth's space. The Ascendant hung in orbit above the planet like a silent predator, cloaked and waiting. The human fleet had been in place for weeks, its movements disguised through a series of quantum mirages that made their presence seem non-existent. No one, least of all the Alliance, had any idea of the scale of the preparation beneath the surface. Every move, every calculated shift, had been made to look like human insignificance, when, in fact, it had all been designed to set the stage for a moment like this. A soft chime broke through Sarah's concentration. It was a communication from Dr. Marcus Rivera. "Ambassador," Rivera's voice crackled through the comm. "It's time." Sarah's lips curled into a subtle smile, but there was no joy in it, only the sharp edge of determination. "Prepare the fleet. Engage the Phantom Drive." The unseen force. The Phantom Drive, humanity's greatest technological secret, was a masterwork of subtlety and precision. While the Alliance's ships relied on brute force, their engines roaring across space like loud proclamations, human vessels had been designed for silence. The Phantom Drive allowed ships to slip through the folds of spacetime itself, moving through dimensions in ways that were nearly impossible to detect. To the Alliance, the Ascendant was nothing more than an empty patch of space. No signals, no energy readings, no movement. Just a black hole in the star charts where there should have been a ship. And that was exactly how Sarah wanted it. For now, the human fleet had become a ghost fleet, unseen, undetected, and ready to strike when the time came. As the initial strikes tore through the Alliance's forces, Sarah turned to her crew, her voice calm but resolute. "This is just the beginning. We need to keep pushing. We're not going to stop until the message is clear. Humanity is no one's prey." The quantum grid's energy fields continued to warp and twist, masking their movements, distorting reality, and creating a reality the Alliance would never understand. In the cold expanse of space, the battle for Earth's future had begun, and the first blow had already been struck. The Alliance, for all its technological might, was no match for a species that knew how to wait, a species that knew when to smile, when to play the fool, and when to strike. The galaxy would soon learn that humanity wasn't just a Deathworld species. Humanity was a force to be reckoned with, and it would never play nice again. The wrath of the Phoenix. The silence of space was broken only by the low hum of the Ascendant's engines, which thrummed with a power that echoed through the hull like a deep, dark heartbeat. Sarah Chen stood at the command console, watching the holographic displays flicker with data from the front lines. The first wave of the human fleet had made its mark, but the battle was far from over. The Alliance had been rattled, but they weren't done yet. Sarah knew that this was only the beginning of what would be a long, hard-fought war. She had expected this. The Alliance wouldn't be defeated with a single strike. Their pride wouldn't let them fall that easily. But what they didn't know, what they could never understand, was the true force humanity had at its disposal. The Ascendant was only a small part of a far greater plan, one that had been in motion long before the first shot had been fired. The Alliance thought they were dealing with a species of primitives, a handful of scavengers and survivors who had stumbled onto an advanced technology by sheer luck. They thought wrong. Sarah's fingers danced across the console, bringing up new schematics. The real power of humanity wasn't in their technology alone. It was in their adaptability, their ingenuity, and their will to fight for something more than survival. The first wave had been a warning shot. The second wave, the one that was coming now, would be a message they would never forget. The Phoenix Protocol. "Activate the Phoenix Protocol," Sarah commanded, her voice unwavering. The room seemed to hold its breath as her words resonated throughout the Ascendant and its fleet. The Phoenix Protocol was the culmination of years of covert research and experimentation, humanity's secret weapon. It wasn't just a fleet. It wasn't just a fleet of ships equipped with powerful weapons. It was something more, something the Alliance had never seen. The Phoenix Protocol was a plan for both offense and defense, an integrated system that combined human ingenuity with quantum technology. Its purpose was simple: to turn the tables on the Alliance, to bring their own tactics back against them, and to make sure they understood the price of underestimating humanity. A cascade of light flickered across the fleet's array of ships. The Ascendant was at the center of it, but surrounding it were dozens of... Without warning, every single ship in the Alliance's fleet went silent. Sensors went dark. Subsystems shut down. The Alliance was blind, deaf, and isolated, each ship trapped in its own pocket of space, cut off from any external help. In the chaos that followed, crew members scrambled, desperately trying to re-establish systems, but it was useless. The blackout had struck too deep, too fast. And now, the Ascendant and its fleet could see everything. The hunt begins. The first strike came like a lightning bolt. In the blink of an eye, the Ascendant and the smaller ships surrounding it emerged from their cloaked positions, weapons charged and ready. The Alliance fleet, still struggling to realign itself, had no time to react. Sarah's eyes flashed with cold precision as the Ascendant's targeting systems locked onto the first Alliance ship, a massive dreadnought that had been trying to regroup. Her finger hovered over the command button. One quick press, and it was over. The dreadnought exploded into a ball of fire and debris, its massive form breaking apart in the vacuum of space. The human fleet didn't stop to savor the victory. The attack was swift and efficient, a cold, calculated strike designed to cripple the Alliance's forces and make them question their own strategies. And then, as quickly as they'd come, the humans vanished back into the void. The Phoenix Protocol was in full swing now. Every ship in the fleet was a shadow, a ghost in the system. Each was a step ahead, each anticipating the next move of the Alliance before they could even think to make it. Sarah's lips twisted into a smile as she watched the chaos unfold on the enemy fleet's tactical displays. The Alliance had believed themselves to be the hunters, but it was clear now they had become the prey. A tenuous moment of victory. As the dust settled and the first wave of Alliance ships drifted, shattered, through space, Sarah took a deep breath, her fingers still resting lightly on the console. The human fleet had won their first victory, but she knew better than to let her guard down. "We've only just begun," she murmured under her breath. Beside her, Dr. Rivera appeared, his face as pale as ever but lit up with the glow of satisfaction. "They didn't see it coming." "No," Sarah replied, her eyes narrowing, "and they won't be the last." But the road ahead was uncertain. The Phoenix Protocol had given them the upper hand for now, but the Alliance wasn't going to back down. Sarah knew that the true test was yet to come. The war was far from over, and humanity would have to fight for every inch of the galaxy. But with the Phoenix Protocol in place, humanity was no longer the underdog. They were the hunters. And the Alliance had just woken the beast. The final gambit. The once unbroken silence of space now buzzed with an intensity that rivaled a war drum's beat. The humans had made their move, their battle strategies already woven into the fabric of the universe itself. Every Alliance ship that had survived the last attack was now on edge, their sensors frantically scanning for the ghosts of human technology lurking in the dark. The Phoenix Protocol was still active, but now it had become more than a strategy. It was a promise. Sarah Chen stood once more at the command deck of the Ascendant, watching as the stars outside the viewing ports shifted, their once glorious constellations now tainted by the grim shadows of war. The fleet had retreated to a hidden nebula for the time being, but she knew their next move had to be decisive. The Alliance, though crippled and disoriented, was recovering, and they would strike back soon, fiercer than ever. The clock was ticking. This was it, the final gambit. It had taken weeks to get here. Every step of humanity's strategy had been carefully calculated, each victory feeding the hunger for more, each success revealing a new weakness in the Alliance's structure. Yet now, Sarah felt a gnawing sensation in the pit of her stomach. It wasn't fear. It was the understanding that, for all the brilliance of the Phoenix Protocol, there was a risk she couldn't ignore. If the humans couldn't destroy the heart of the Alliance now, they might never have another chance. Beside her, Dr. Rivera was busily making adjustments to the quantum core. He had been instrumental in developing the technology that had driven humanity's rise, and now he was working tirelessly to ensure the final phase of their plan was flawless. "We're ready," Rivera said, his voice cool and steady, but his eyes betrayed a flicker of doubt. "If this works, the Alliance will be crippled. If it doesn't..." Sarah interrupted, her voice hard as steel. "We fight. We fight until the last breath. No turning back." There was no time for hesitation. There had never been. Sarah watched as the system diagnostics completed. Her hands hovered over the controls as the final stage of their plan unfolded before her. She felt the familiar rush of adrenaline surge through her veins. The humans had given the Alliance a chance to back down. They had let their enemies underestimate them at every turn, but now it was time to make them pay. "The quantum mirage is online," Rivera confirmed, his voice full of quiet anticipation. The quantum mirage, an application of entanglement technology that was years ahead of anything the Alliance had ever seen, would be their ultimate weapon. It was humanity's last card, and it would hit the Alliance where they least expected. Sarah pressed a single button, and the Ascendant's systems hummed to life. At that moment, all of humanity's forces, across hundreds of ships, simultaneously activated their cloaking fields. But the quantum mirage was far more than simple invisibility. It would make the entire fleet appear as nothing more than an innocuous piece of debris, as if they didn't even exist in the galaxy's grand expanse. And it wouldn't just fool the Alliance, it would convince them that their suspicions about human technology were just wild conspiracy theories. But the Ascendant was far from a simple ship now. It was the nucleus of an entire war machine. Once the quantum mirage was in place, the final step could begin. After hours of tense waiting, the Alliance finally moved into position, drawn by the debris and false readings that the quantum mirage projected. The humans had drawn them in. The Alliance flagship, Eris, a colossal dreadnought that had become the symbol of their strength, led the charge. It was massive, over 1 kilometer in length, its hull decorated with symbols of dominance. Yet Sarah knew it for what it truly was. A machine of pride and arrogance, one that had failed to understand the depth of humanity's capabilities. She watched the Alliance fleet move closer, unaware of the trap. Their sensors still scanned blindly, following the path set for them by human ingenuity. At that moment, Sarah's hand steadied. She initiated the final phase of the plan, a command that sent ripples through every ship in the fleet. The quantum distortion field surrounding the Ascendant expanded outward, warping the fabric of space itself. The human fleet reappeared, their positions instantly shifting to flank the Alliance's forces in a perfect formation. Each ship surged forward, revealing its full weaponry, but not with raw power alone. No, this was something more. The human ships had adapted their weapons to fire quantum pulses that shattered the very concept of spacetime, bending it to their will. The first salvo tore into the Eris's shields, fracturing them like brittle glass. Then, before the Alliance could react, the full might of humanity's technological supremacy unleashed itself. The Eris was torn asunder, ripped apart by a concentrated wave of quantum force. The remaining Alliance ships barely had time to register the threat before the human fleet fell upon them like a storm. The Ascendant led the charge, its engines blazing with the power of human innovation. The Ascendant's weapons flared, sending shockwaves through the remaining Alliance ships. Their shields buckled, their weapons misfired, and their navigation systems crumbled as humanity's fleets systematically dismantled them. For every ship the Alliance lost, another rose from the human fleet, each strike more precise than the last. But amidst the chaos, the Alliance fought back with desperation. Their remaining warships launched a counteroffensive, but their tactics were too slow, too predictable. They had underestimated humanity at every turn, and now, that mistake would be their downfall. Sarah Chen's eyes burned with determination as she watched the Alliance crumble. She didn't have to give orders anymore. Her fleet knew their roles. They had been preparing for this moment for years. The Alliance was not just beaten. They were broken. Their arrogance, their exploitation of weaker species, had led them to this catastrophic failure. And humanity had become the harbingers of their downfall. The battle was over. The remnants of the Alliance fleet drifted in the void, their pride shattered, their power undone. In the silence that followed, Sarah allowed herself a moment of reflection. They had won, but victory was never just about strength. It was about more than firepower, more than technological superiority. Humanity had fought not because they were the strongest, but because they had something the Alliance could never understand: the ability to fight for something more than themselves. Begin the reconstruction, Sarah ordered quietly. The universe will hear our message now. Dr. Rivera gave her a nod, his face weary but resolute. They had done it. The final gambit had been played, and humanity had emerged victorious. The Phoenix Protocol had proven itself to be the game changer. It had brought down the Alliance, not with brute force, but with calculated brilliance. The galaxy would never forget the day humanity stopped playing nice. And now, the humans were ready to shape the future.